And a welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We are here for a very special broadcast here on Sunday, on Selection Sunday of the College Football Playoff Committee's decision of who gets into the 2025-26 field. And we are with you while it's happening, so we'll be bringing this into you. Happy to be here with you inside the travel Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Great Lakes Honda City coming to you on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. You can go and see them for sales and service, and we implore you to do that Monday through Saturday. Let them know the DT sent you their way. Appreciate you going out there, and many thanks to everybody that has gone out. So let's jump right into what's happening in the college football playoff. We have our first seed, and there's no surprise here in who the first seed is going to be, as they got the victory. There were the top two seeds in the country, or the top two ranked teams in the country, and those top two ranked teams, the decision was made on the field as Indiana becomes the number one seed in this college football playoff. From last year, when there was the question of should they get in, to this year beating Ohio State, I said I needed to see a little bit more what they did at the beginning of the season. I was like, okay, at Oregon, that's a good win. At Iowa, that's a good win. But their last four teams that they went up against going into those games had a combined record in the Big Ten of 1-17. I wanted to see Indiana do more, and they did it on the field against Ohio State, who gets the number 2 seed. The Big Ten getting the love here. I don't know why Georgia doesn't end up with the number 2 seed, but I guess they're looking at Ohio State saying, well, your only loss is to the number 1 team in the country, where Georgia's only loss of the season is to Alabama, who they defeated in the SEC title game. So I can understand maybe them putting them down a little bit there, saying, well, you lost to an Alabama team and you blew them. That's a team that you blew out. Alabama lost to Oklahoma. So, with Ohio State, the only loss they have is to the number 1 team in the country. The third team are the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia Bulldogs getting in to this thing. Georgia getting in with a record of 12-1, winning the SEC. And then we see the team that is in fourth, which is your Big 12 champion. They blew out BYU earlier this season. They blew them out by even more this time around. Your Texas Tech Red Raiders make it into the fourth and final spot that gives these teams a bye week to start off the college football playoff. So that's how it looks. Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas Tech. Let's clear the board and let's take a look at where they saw the other teams here. This I don't agree with. I know that they weren't going to really move them that far off. But again, the committee likes the Big Ten a lot. They've liked them over the years here. They definitely like Oregon. Oregon is 11-1. But that 11-1, a little bit of smoke and mirrors, as Oregon played a very weak schedule in and outside of the Big Ten. Oregon, not a lot of challenge outside of the Big Ten, and inside of the Big Ten, they defeated Iowa and USC. So not a great look here. They did lose to the only loss they have is to Indiana, the number 1 team in the country. And so you get helped by the way that Indiana plays better. Your number 6 seed are your Ole Miss Red Raiders. Your Ole Miss Red Raiders, Ole Miss Rebels. The Ole Miss Rebels, I was wondering if this was going to affect things, because part of the criteria with the college football playoff is that you could be affected by the fact that you don't have availability of coaches and players, but they're not punishing Ole Miss with the lane train pulling out of the station. So that's something to look at. The number 7 seed that has been released. But, so stay with Ole Miss here for a second. Ole Miss, in what they've done, listen, they're 11-1. They had themselves a fantastic season. I dropped them in my rankings because of the fact that they don't have their head coach anymore. And so I thought that was something maybe the committee would look at. It seems like the committee is okay with the fact that Ole Miss does not have Lane Kiffin and maybe some other coaches and players. Texas A&M gets the 7th seed here. Texas A&M's only loss are to the Texas Longhorns for the Aggies here. Texas A&M went 11-0 to start the season, including a win over Notre Dame early on in the season. Their only loss was in the last week of the season to Texas, who is a very good 3-loss team. And your number 8 seed, your Oklahoma Sooners. So if you look at it right now, you have Georgia, you have Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma. That's already 4 teams from the SEC. Oklahoma going 10-2 on the season. And what does Oklahoma have? Oklahoma has a win over the Alabama Crimson Tide. And who is your number 9 seed that they're going to be facing in that rematch? That's going to be a huge game in Oklahoma. Alabama gets in. No surprise here that Alabama got in. Not in my opinion here. The 10-3 Alabama Crimson Tide. You look at what they've done, the string of wins that they have inside of the SEC. And yes, they did lose to Oklahoma, which is why they should be behind them. But they played in their championship game and had 10 wins on the season going into it. And your number 10 seed, your Miami Hurricanes, get in. And I am in agreement of this as well, because Miami, keep in mind, the Miami Hurricanes, despite not playing in the ACC title game due to the fact of some very interesting tiebreakers that were happening in a 5-way tie of teams that were 6-2 in the conference, the Miami Hurricanes have 2 losses this season. People say the losses are bad. SMU was right there in that 5-way tie to play with Miami to play in the ACC title game. And then you look at Louisville, who was ranked multiple times this season, did some good things and started to dip off at the end of the season here, toward the end of the season. So I do think that there's some good things coming from the Miami Hurricanes. Keep in mind they defeated Notre Dame, and that has to count for something. So now we are sitting here with 2 more seeds left, and you would imagine that these are going to go to Tulane and James Madison, which means that we will not see Notre Dame in the field. So as we await these, I'm going to go back to our main screen here. As we are here in the moment, I am releasing this as it happens, the college football playoff. You know that I've covered the college football playoff for many, many years, was on site, on location for every single round last year, from the first round of the 12-team playoff, the historic first year of the 12-team playoff. I was there in the first round, SMU at Penn State. And then I was in the quarterfinal at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl between Arizona State and Texas. Then went on from there to the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, which was in the semifinal of the college football playoff between Ohio State and Texas. And I was there as part of the media. 200 to 300 people in the media in the entire world were there and credentialed. And so that's an honor from God. And I also want to, of course, thank the college football playoff and everybody working within it and everyone working with the Bulls that I was there in the college football playoff national championship on site, on location. I met Captain America, Anthony Mackie, there on the sideline and had the opportunity to celebrate and spend some time there, you know, just taking this all in at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, who hosted it, who also hosts the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and the Aflac kickoff game. And so that was a great opportunity to be able to be there for the national championship between Ohio State and Notre Dame, and Ohio State winning the first ever 12-team playoff. We have our 11th team. It looks like Notre Dame is going to be out of this one, folks. And as we take a look at the college football playoff, the 11 seed goes to Tulane. Keep in mind, you have to take your top 5 conference champions. Those are your 5 automatic bids. That means there is no Notre Dame. There cannot be a Notre Dame because Indiana won the Big Ten. Then you have Georgia, who won the SEC. You have Texas Tech, who won the Big 12. You have Tulane, who won the American, which means James Madison is the final team in here, and Notre Dame did not make it. Tulane, the Green Wave, at 11-2. They are here as your 11 seed. And your 12 seed, James Madison, I'm so excited to see this because I can't stand that the media came up with the terms of power and non-power or power and group of, because it really just, when you say that these are your power conferences, it basically says you have weak over here and you have power over there. Well, James Madison gets in, Duke winning, and we called this on Wake Up Call when I had Thomas Christopher Pasquarello and Shane Barrett of the League Winners on the show. We called this chaos scenario that if Tulane or North Texas, whichever team won the American, James Madison wins the Sun Belt and Duke wins the ACC, that puts us in a place where James Madison and Tulane would both get in because Duke was not ranked higher than them. Duke had 5 losses, and I couldn't see it happening. So that is the field, folks. And the first team out, Notre Dame. The next team out, BYU. And that's what it looks like as we take a look at this here. So that's the bracket. And I'm going to go ahead, folks, and take a quick step aside for a fast break. When we come back, we'll take a look at exactly what that bracket looks like here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. So make sure you stay with us here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora.
Avicoli's restaurant, located on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, has been serving our community for decades. Your place to go for home cooking on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road is just minutes from Liverpool High School. And every single month, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is on site, on location, with Liverpool sports, student athletes, coaches, and administration telling their stories throughout the year. We look forward to seeing you on site at Avicoli's for their casual pizza side, their fine dining, as well as their bar. And of course, you can order online at myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. For takeout, delivery, and catering, call 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100. Come on into the neighborhood spot Avicoli's, open 7 days a week in Liverpool, New York. K9 Campground Dog Boarding is your home away from home for your furry-loving friends. Open 7 days a week with drop-off and pickup times in the morning and later on in the day and early evening. K9 Campground Dog Boarding is the spot to trust with your dog for short and long-term stays. Call 315-299-4013 for more information. That's 315-299-4013, and go to k9campground.com as well. That's K9, ground.com, where you will find all of the information on their different cabins, which include the classic cabin, executive cabin, grand cabin, and luxury cabin. K9 Campground Dog Boarding, where your dog will have indoor and outdoor areas as well as their own private cabin for any size, any breed, as well as dogs with different needs. Dog parents and dogs alike choose K9 Campground Dog Boarding. Isn't that right, Lily? Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
And welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, releasing the college football playoff 12-team field, the final rankings as they come in. And we are going to look at that, folks, right here and right now. I'm going to bring it up here on the screen so we can take a look at exactly what this is going to be as we embark on what's coming up here in the college football playoff. So absolutely, this is a moment now. I've been talking about this for weeks and weeks all throughout the season. We've been spending a ton of time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora about this, and I do my homework, okay? I have to look at this nationally. I don't consider myself a local or regional. It's, to me, it's beyond that. It's national and international, and the opportunity to bring this information to you is a blessing and a privilege from God. I thank God first and foremost. This is an extremely, extremely difficult thing to do. You have no idea how hard it is to go through this unless you actually sit down and do it. When you have your own team and you like your own team and you want to support your own team, then yeah, you can sit there and argue till the cows come home about the team that you think should get in when it's your team. But when you have to sit and you have to look at the entire country and do your homework on the country, it's a very, very arduous process. And this is what the final 12-team bracket looks like. So the placement of the teams that we have here, remember, it was a 14 playoff until last year when it expanded to 12. When it expanded to 12, they said the top 5 seeds were going to be conference champions, or but the top 4 seeds were going to be conference champions. And then they changed that after this year. They said, no, the top 4 seeds are going to be our top 4 highest ranked teams. And so in doing that, that put them in a situation where you could have Ohio State and Indiana both in the top 4 from the same conference. So that's what we see here. I agreed with the Indiana placement. I thought that Georgia should have been number 2, in my opinion. I feel like Georgia winning the SEC, having only one loss on the entire season, that being to Alabama, I felt like that should have put them over Ohio State. Ohio State played far weaker of a schedule. Georgia and Ohio State have a common opponent in Texas, which Georgia blew out, as opposed to Ohio State winning by a touchdown. So I did have Georgia and Ohio State in the top 3, but I would have put Georgia at 2. I would have put Ohio State at 3. I did have Texas Tech at 4, and I agreed with that. Now, the Oregon situation, here's the thing with Oregon. They, as I was saying before, they have a win over USC, they have a win over Iowa, and those are good, right? But the Iowa win is a Tier 2 win, Quad 2, whatever you want to call it. I group them into quads so that college football and college basketball can have, if we talk about quads with both of these sports, it helps us to understand, because once you understand the quad system 1 through 4 and you utilize it in college football and college basketball, then it helps you to have that seamless transition between the two of really understanding where I'm grading teams, where I'm putting teams, and making sense of it all. So Oregon, to me, you have a quad 2 win against USC, you have a quad 2 win against Iowa. Well, why do I call Iowa a quad 2? Well, Iowa has 4 losses. But Indiana, the teams that were promoted for beating Iowa, right? Indiana beat Iowa, Oregon beat Iowa. It's like if you beat Iowa in the Big Ten this year, it was considered a good win for you. Now, USC, they lost to Illinois, the team that was blown out by 50-plus when they went up against Indiana. So having USC lose to Illinois, that drops them to a quad 2 for me. Yeah, USC beat Iowa, okay, but what else did they do? And so Oregon, to me, being 11-1, I didn't think the committee would keep them out, but I thought the conversation was not so much Alabama, Notre Dame, which I think is a stupid argument because it's Alabama all day and this season, and then, which is the only thing we're dealing with here. People, start having conversations about last season and this and that in history, and it only matters this season and what you're doing this season. And Oregon this season played a weak schedule. And I didn't think they were going to keep them out, but I thought the conversation was going to be Notre Dame, Ole Miss, because Ole Miss, with the coaching change, Notre Dame, Oregon, because Oregon played a weak schedule. Notre Dame didn't beat the 2 good teams they played, and the rest of their schedule, most of it was weak. And then you look at, okay, and they both have a common opponent in USC. So I thought Oregon and Notre Dame, that was the argument to really make. And maybe that was the argument that they were talking about. But ultimately, they chose Oregon. They put them at 5th. I would have had the SEC higher than them here. Ole Miss gets the 6th spot. And Ole Miss getting the 6th spot, listen, I don't want to punish the kids. I don't think they should punish the kids. I thought the committee might drop them down because of the fact that we're looking at a situation where when coaches leave teams, typically they lose in the bowl season. And, you see Mike Norvell when he left Memphis and they had to go up against Penn State. You got to understand what it does to a locker room when you have a coach who is your leader, right? There's a reason why that coach has done well with you, and there's a reason why that other school wants that coach. And so coaches that stay, i.e. John Summerall of Tulane, who's going to Florida but not yet, i.e. when we look at Bob Chesney of James Madison, who's going to UCLA but not yet, with what Eric Morris did with North Texas, Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss, I thought they might punish him. I'm happy that they didn't. They're 11-1, but again, like Oregon, they played a weaker schedule, but Ole Miss in the SEC, which I consider to be above the Big Ten. Then we take, and that's not me saying that every school is above every school. I'm saying by and large, I think that the conference of the SEC is above the Big Ten. At number 7 in the SEC, we have Texas A&M. Texas A&M has one loss. They went 11-0 until they played Texas, and I thought Texas would win this game. I picked Texas to win the game. I think Texas is arguably the best team that was left out of here. It's not Notre Dame, and it's not BYU. Texas has 3 losses, but then you have to show me who's played a schedule like Texas, and that's supposed to matter, right? Strength of schedule, and then you look at what Texas did. Texas beat Oklahoma, who's in the field, beat Texas A&M, who's in the field. So there's something to be said about that. They also beat Vanderbilt, which in my opinion was something that knocked Vanderbilt out of this thing, and Texas A&M beat Notre Dame head-to-head. Then, so they're the 7 seed. And then in the 8-9 matchup, this is so intriguing because it forces Alabama to play Oklahoma again. Now, Oklahoma beat Alabama in the regular season. You saw that Alabama handed Georgia their only loss of this season so far, with Georgia being 12-1. Alabama beating Georgia on the road, then losing to Georgia. Oklahoma beat Alabama during the regular season. Can Alabama return the favor like Georgia did to them in the SEC championship game? We're going to find out, but this game will not be played in Tuscaloosa. It will be played in the great state of Oklahoma. The winner of that game, Alabama-Oklahoma, will play Indiana to show, is Indiana really for real? The game against Ohio State showed me something. I definitely wanted to see them play better competition. They beat a good team in Ohio State, potentially a great team. And so now knowing that Indiana will have to play the winner of Alabama-Oklahoma is going to show you very soon if Indiana is for real. And then Miami getting in. Listen, the irony of Miami playing Texas A&M when those were the 2 losses that Notre Dame had and Notre Dame's not in it, it's to show you, okay, which team that beat Notre Dame is the best of the 2. And I think this is a toss-up. Texas A&M had to come back from down 27 to South Carolina, who's an unranked team below 500, where Miami, they did trip a little bit. And we've seen Miami trip in these past few years. They lose 1 or 2 games, and they lost 2 games this season. Now we're going to see Texas A&M and Miami play up against each other, the 2 teams that knocked out Notre Dame because they beat them head-to-head, and head-to-head's supposed to matter, and I don't even know why we have to tell people that these days, but head-to-head needs to matter, because if you beat a team normally you're looking at a bunch of teams on paper, and you're trying to figure out who's better than who when they haven't played each other. When you have the exact same record and you played each other, or you have 1 less loss and you played each other, this was an easy decision for the committee, in my opinion, to put Texas A&M and Miami in above Notre Dame because they both beat Notre Dame. And then you have your 2 other conference champions because you have 5 automatic bids for conference champions and 7 at-large in the current playoff model for the college football playoff. So Tulane and James Madison, as I predicted, made it. Tulane above James Madison, as I predicted, the American being above the Sun Belt. They've had a bunch of teams ranked. The Sun Belt has had no teams ranked besides James Madison. And so this field is what it looks like. And I got to say that I agree with the committee on most things. Like I said, I agree with them on Indiana. I agree with them on, Georgia being in the top 3 and Ohio State being in the top 3. So I'll show you the ones once again really quick for those of you that just tuned in. Indiana I had at that spot. Texas Tech I had there. James Madison I had at 12. Tulane I had here as well at 11. And then, when you look at the breakdown of other things here, I had Alabama in the field. I had Oklahoma in the field. I had Miami in the field. I had Texas A&M in the field. Of course, I had Ohio State and Georgia, as we mentioned before, in the field. And then Ole Miss and Oregon, that was okay. You got to put in Notre Dame over a team that played a pretty weak schedule in Oregon, but Oregon has 1 less loss. Or are you going to and then you look at Ole Miss has 1 less loss than Notre Dame, and they played in the SEC. This is the first time that we may see, whether they meant to do it or not, that Notre Dame is being punished for not being in a conference. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There is one easy way to get Notre Dame to join a conference. All you have to do is say in the bylaws and the rules of the college football playoff that you cannot advance to the college football playoff. You cannot qualify for the college football playoff unless you are a member of a conference. There's only 2 FBS independent schools, and that's Notre Dame and UConn. UConn would absolutely join if they were sent that, I would imagine. And then, Notre Dame would have to join a conference. In my opinion, I think that they would join the Big Ten. But, the ACC has them for every other sport other than football, but I think Notre Dame money-wise would be joining the Big Ten in my opinion. But this may be one of those things that asks Notre Dame what they're going to do. Now that you know who's in the college football playoff for 2025-26, the teams that were let out of this thing, when we go back and we look at it, the teams that did not advance, of course, those of you that are already commenting and taking a look at all of this, you know the teams that didn't make it: Notre Dame, Texas at 9-3, Vanderbilt at 10-2, BYU at 10-2. Their only loss to Texas Tech, both of those losses to the same team. Utah at 10-2. We take a look at Virginia at 10-3, who lost to Duke. Of course, Duke, the ACC champion, doesn't make it, but the ACC gets a representative in Miami, and I think Miami's better than Duke, so I agree with that move. We didn't see Navy, North Texas, both from the American, Houston, Arizona, other teams that I had in the top 25 here, and that's really how it shakes out. I think it really came down to, in my opinion, it comes down to Notre Dame and Texas. And I mean, they say it was Miami, Alabama, Notre Dame. I think you really had to look at Notre Dame versus Oregon, Notre Dame versus, Ole Miss. And they didn't punish Ole Miss for losing their coach, and they didn't punish Oregon for having a weaker schedule. So that's how it all shakes out. My top 25 came out right before the top 25 came out for the college football playoffs. So the last thing that I'll do in this broadcast is I'll actually show you my top 25 for those of you that haven't seen it. But, listen, some people made it personal. Some people got crazy. I was getting messages at all hours of the day. And all I can say is thank you. Thank you for the messages. Whether you agreed with me or disagreed with me, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for reading our content and responding to the content. I appreciate it. Some people don't appreciate haters and naysayers and negative people. And am I fond of the way that negativity comes across? Not necessarily, but I am happy that you took the time to watch my show, to look at what I wrote, and to read through it and to assess it and have your own opinion. This is my top 25, and this is how I broke it down. So I can't do a top 25 of really putting anybody anywhere unless I can argue it. So like I said, I had Indiana at 1 and I had Georgia at 2 because I thought the SEC champion should be behind the Big Ten champion. And then I think Texas Tech should be behind because they won the Big 12, and you're looking at the records. They put Ohio State above them at 2 instead of at 4 where I had them. I valued Oklahoma above Oregon. Oklahoma has a win over Alabama. Oklahoma did more things inside of this regular season that Oregon did, so that's why I had Oklahoma there. I had Texas A&M at 6. I thought Texas A&M at 6 made some sense. And you know what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put them up side by side. I'm going to go ahead and move this piece here, and we're going to change some things. This is live, so why not do it? So I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like of my top 25 side by side with what the field actually picked here. So if you take a look at what we have, so then if you look at Texas A&M, they have it 7. I had them at 6th. I had them above Ole Miss with a record of 11-1. I had Miami at 7. They put Miami at 10. I had Alabama at 8. They put Alabama at 9. Keep in mind, I had Oklahoma above them, so that would have forced that matchup. Well, actually, when you take a look at this, too, when you look at my rankings here, you have to keep in mind that my 1, 2, and 3 are conference champions. So, really, you're saying Ohio State I had as the 4 seed, and then you're saying I have Oklahoma as the 5 seed, Texas A&M as the 6 here, Miami as the 7, and then Alabama. So you're looking at those at-large teams that I have. Alabama, right around that 8-9 matchup is where I had them. And then I had Notre Dame over Oregon because I thought Notre Dame could argue over Oregon and look at common opponent and whatnot. And I thought Texas had a shot in this thing. See, Ole Miss was the team I didn't know where to put because, again, I didn't know if Lane Kiffin leaving was going to be a punishment because it is part of the criteria. When you look at the college football playoff, criteria of what they assessed. This was put up before they released it. It said the process to distinguish among comparable teams or comparable teams, strength of schedule, head-to-head competition, comparative outcomes of common opponents without incentivizing margin of victory. So you look at common opponents, but you don't necessarily look at margin of victory. Unavailability of key players and coaches that may have affected past performance or likely will affect postseason performance. So that fourth one was the one that I thought that maybe, just maybe, they would leave out Ole Miss. So I think Texas was definitely up here. Vanderbilt, BYU, Utah and whatnot. I don't necessarily agree that. I think Notre Dame, I have them ranked above Texas. They're the first team out, which is what the committee had. But the second team out, they had BYU. I would argue it's Texas, then Vanderbilt, then BYU. Why? They play in the SEC. Texas had tougher competition that they went up against, and they had 3 wins against teams in the upper echelon, quad 1 of the country. If Vanderbilt had won over Texas or Alabama, one of those games, I think Vanderbilt would have been in. And then I put BYU below them in that. BYU beat Utah, so Utah's below that. Then I put Tulane. It doesn't matter in the top 25 where you put those other conference champions, because if they're a conference champion, they get in. So that's why Tulane to me is 16. They're behind these teams, but they get in. And then I have Virginia, and then I have North Texas, Houston, Arizona, JMU at 21, USC, Iowa, Navy, and I did put Duke in at 25. I would have put SMU, but Duke played for the championship and SMU didn't, which is why I put Duke there, because I thought SMU was a good team. If SMU had won their last game against Cal, they would have been playing in the conference championship game against Virginia, and we might have been talking about SMU getting in here. And then what does that do with Miami? Because that would have been another argument in favor of Miami. If SMU is the ACC champion, then Miami even more so. It's like, okay, well, Miami lost to that team, and now they're not saying SMU is as bad of a loss, which I don't think it was a bad loss. So that's my top 25 that I did before the release of the college football playoff field. And so, like I said, I agree with what they have. I'm not surprised in their top 4. Those were my top 4 with just Ohio State in a different position. And I'm not surprised they put in Oregon. I figured that they would. I value Oregon a little bit less, but I fully expected the committee to put them in. Texas A&M, Miami, yes. Oklahoma, Alabama, yes. And then, looking at Tulane and James Madison, those, you take your top 5 conference champions, and there you go. Your number 1 conference champion that you had here was Indiana, and then behind them you had Georgia, then Texas Tech. So you took your Big Ten champion, you took your SEC champion, you took your Big 12 champion, and then you took your American champion in Tulane, you took your Sun Belt champion in James Madison, and you left out ACC champion Duke, which makes perfect sense because of Duke's record of 8-5 and their lack of having key victories. So that's the college football playoff for the 2025-26 season. I look forward to covering it by the grace of God. And I want to put a disclaimer out here. I thought about doing this video yesterday, but I thought, why not just put it all together? And I want to look at the screen. I want you to hear my voice and see my eyes when I say this to you as I look right at you. This is a very, 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 very difficult decision to make. And there are people out here that have thought, I personally don't like a conference, or I personally don't like a team. That could not be farther from the truth. We live in a society where if we don't agree with each other, then people go off the handle, right? You didn't put my team in, so you hate me. You hate me, you hate my family, you hate my team, you hate my conference, and then they're over here on one extreme and they think you're on the other. I have to look at the entire country. Okay, and to the thousands of messages I received, the committee agreed with me. And so that might not always happen, but I'm always going to do my homework. And the committee agreed with me. So to all the messages that I received about I shouldn't be a broadcaster, I should give up my job, I should be a DJ and play music, of people that called me names that were extremely disrespectful or a little bit disrespectful, I was giving an opinion. And now you've seen a room of college football playoff committee members have that same opinion. So I didn't hate your teams. I didn't hate your conferences or your lack thereof a conference. I simply was doing my job. And in doing my job, I had to assess, just like this committee had to assess. And I've been broadcasting for 22 years, over 22 years. It was 22 years in November. I've owned my own company for over 13 years. Before that, I worked at ESPN Radio in 3 different states, Fox Sports Online, which was connected with Scout.com at the time, and I also worked with a Yahoo Sports affiliate on radio. I went to school for this, and I didn't anticipate that doing my homework and having an opinion, and when I thought this team shouldn't or this team should, I didn't think it would create what it's created. But social media, which was meant to bring us together, is also something that's been very divisive, and it's been very manipulative. And, you know, between people talk about algorithms and all these things that go on with social media, and how there's almost a control of wanting to keep angry people angry. And so, you know, I would just advise people to understand that as much as anybody can have a social media handle and anybody can call themselves a reporter or a broadcaster, it takes a lot of work. I don't do anything lightly. And if I feel like I haven't put my research in or my due diligence, I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I'll go back and I'll do what I need to do. My conscience is big, and maybe that's what the world needs, is that we should all have a bigger conscience than maybe we have at times. But my disclaimer to every single one of you, this is not easy. It takes a lot of time. I'm doing my top 25 at 3:34 in the morning. And I was doing it right up to the 11th hour before the committee made their picks today. I have to be able to argue my point with 25, actually probably 30 teams, because you're wondering the teams that I kept out. And so this is a lot more difficult than it looks. Some people think you turn on the microphone, you stare at the camera, and you go. They don't see all the work that goes into it and the time that you spent. You know, I got asked by a student at Alfred State, by Finley, and Finley asked me, how many hours do you put in? What's your typical schedule? And I said 9 a.m. to midnight is probably a pretty normal schedule for me. Now, yes, I eat in between, and I might play with my dog and have some fun and whatnot. But when you talk about working in some way, shape, or form, it's easy for me to say that at least 15 to 16 out of 24 hours I'm working. And sometimes it's longer. So I just want people to know that I respect every conference, if that hasn't been clear. I respect every team. I respect every institution. It is hard being a student athlete. It is hard being a coach. It is hard being an athletic director. It is hard being a staff member. It is hard in life to live life sometimes. And when I sit here with you and I have the blessing that God has allowed me to live my dreams and do what I love and love what I do, I'm all about discussion. I'm all about disagreement with respect. But I will never be somebody who will continue to have a conversation with people that are disrespectful, mean, personally attacking, and just hateful. I did not anticipate having a justifiable, factual, logical, rational opinion to create so much discourse, but it did. And at the end of the day, you see what the committee was looking at, you see what I was looking at, and hopefully it makes some sense to you right now as you step forward. And hopefully you know that I am rooting for all 12 of these teams in the college football playoff. I pray and hope that they stay healthy more than anything. They stay safe, they stay happy, and they give their God-given talent. They do the best they can. They listen to no naysayer out there, and they just go out and have fun. To Indiana, to Ohio State, to Georgia, to Texas Tech, to Oregon, to Ole Miss, as well as Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama, Miami, Tulane, and James Madison. Congratulations. To the Notre Dames and the BYUs and the Texases and the Vanderbilts of the world, congratulations. To the Dukes of the world, congratulations to you as well. I hope that you go and play in your bowl games. I hope your coaches coach them. I hope your student athletes play in them. And I hope you go out there and continue your season on and don't give up on anything. To the American and the Sun Belt, I am very proud to be one of the people out there that has always supported everyone, asked for equal opportunity, and looks to constantly give a name to those that people don't want to talk about and give a voice to the voiceless and make sure that everybody sitting at the table has a place to come to. The American has known that before they had a name and a logo. The Sun Belt, I hope you know that, to the MAC, to the Mountain West, to the PAC and whatever you become there, to Conference USA, to every single conference. I hope that you fully understand and know that here on this show, on Wake Up Call, and all the work that I do, you always have a place to share your message. We have a commissioner corner where I talk with commissioners all around the country from all different conferences that are encompassing all different states, some that have a lot of representation and some that you don't hear from as much. I seek to put everybody on the same playing field when it comes to content and conversation. I hope you can see that in me. I hope you can respect my opinion, understand why I have it. I hope that you will listen to the show when you agree with me. I hope that you will listen when you don't agree with me and continue to watch as well. For now, from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in the Travel Great Lakes Honda City Studios, I say, God bless, no stress, do your best. And for football, jumping into the college football playoff, it's on, and I can't wait. Talk to you soon.